So the thing with focus is that quite often when we do our things and we kind of get distracted, so time management, discipline, focus, these are all kind of similar things. You might have tried to-do list, you might have tried some time scheduling, and you might have realized that you're struggling to do it. One of the reasons is external environment, how you discipline yourself, your thought process on all of these things, self-doubt, but also how you teach other people to respect your time and opportunity to focus. So in the next couple of videos, we're going to talk a little bit about these specific things to see if that can help you get better organizational skills, better focus, and better time management. So what do I actually mean when I say to be focused? I mean the ability to not get distracted and the ability to kind of stick to what you said and the promises you made about what you wanted to do, right? And how often do you lie to yourself? And how often do you not do what you said you would do? But how often do you actually go to work, go to school, and commit to other promises that you did make to your friends, to your colleagues, and to your family? I'm hoping and I'm going to claim that it's a higher percentage that the time you go and do what you said you would do for other people. But how often do it for yourself? That is what we're talking about when we're talking about being focused, having the discipline, controlling your time management, and actually getting things done. It is much more than having a to-do list, but that's a good starting point. Okay, see you at the next video. There's something called hyperbolic discounting, which is basically that we have a tendency psychologically to think about that rewards that comes later is less rewarding. So if you could pick between $100 today or $10,000 end of the month, you would probably pick $100 today. Or let's make it more realistic. Let's say you were giving the opportunity to get $100 today or 10 cents every day for the next couple of weeks. Okay, the idea here is later rewards are actually often quite more rewarding, but we often don't see it as rewarding, so we kind of are less likely to put effort into it, right? It's the same with going to the fitness, the gym, diet, all of these difficult things. When you look at someone who done it and you go, wow, that's amazing, that person really put in the effort. So that's kind of what we mean about hyperbolic discounting. You know, it's basically immediate awards. We like to get awards immediately. Okay, so that's basically what happens to your brain as well when you're doing things and you're kind of asking yourself, oh, I think I'll do a little bit of something else. It's a bit harder in today's generation because of Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and other these things that are using science to kind of program you to get addicted and kind of keep coming back. Okay, so that's one thing to remember when it comes to why you are actually getting distracted and why you are doing something else, because you are perceiving it as less rewarding. So the first goal here is to teach yourself that the things you're doing that might seem difficult or that comes later, they are in fact more rewarding. So it's all about stopping to telling your brain that is not less rewarding, but it is actually quite rewarding. So pay attention to what you say and what you do. This is one of the exercises and things you want to keep in mind as you progress through this course. Be observant of your own action and ask yourself, do you value what you're doing less important? Or is it less rewarding? Is that why you are going in another direction? Is that why you're opening the browser and doing something else? Keep an eye on that. Cool. See you in the next video. Marginal thinking is another thing to keep in mind. So marginal thinking is basically something that animals and creatures do too, is that we have a tendency to do something, a specific task, and then we do a little bit, okay, and then we are almost getting done. We decide to move over to something else. That's marginal thinking. That's because we see more value in something else and starting over something else than finishing what we started. Ever heard the saying that the last 10% is the hardest part to do, which is finishing? is kind of connected to marginal thinking. The creatures do that too when they harvest. They're harvesting for food, and even though there's more food left, they'll switch the hunting ground to something else because they see more value in doing something that's, fully loaded, fully stocked up, and so on and so forth. So that's marginal thinking. So just keep in mind when you're doing something and observe your own behavior a little bit and think about, are you switching focus because you're kind of getting bored and you're thinking this has no value anymore? Or is it becoming less interesting and is that why you're switching? Okay, that is what we call marginal thinking. And we want to stop thinking like this. We want to train our brain to really appreciate and value what we're doing. So part of the reason time management doesn't work for a lot of people, or discipline is kind of weak on a lot of people, is because they really need to understand how the mindset works and how we can deal with it and program ourselves to be as efficient as possible. Okay, it's quite important. So remember, pay attention. Are you switching something because it's becoming less interesting? Ask yourself why you're doing it. Okay, see you on the next video. Autopilot. So what do I mean with autopilot? Well, most of the things we do it unconsciously. In fact, is up to 40% of our habits is autopilot. Similar to when you open the door. Do you spend energy doing it? No. Do you really think about it? No. It's a trained habit. It's similar to martial arts. Something that I've been learning recently is muscle memory, right? You have to train your brain to react naturally when there is immediate danger. You don't have time to think about it. So you program your brain to be on autopilot. So 40% about with your habits are most likely bad habits. If you have bad habits, that is, right? That means that you have trained yourself over the years without thinking about it that you're doing something you don't want to do. Some bad habits, specifically for men, is you masturbate. That's a bad habit depending on how much you do it when you do it. A lot of guys would do it if they get bored. Okay, so then it becomes a compulsory habit. In some cases, addiction. Okay, so that is some of the things you also want to start thinking about. What are the things you're doing and why are you doing those? And are there repetitive tasks you do every day? Do you check the phone at a specific time? Are you having some certain patterns such as cravings that when you are losing interest in something, are you then suddenly craving tea, coffee, sweets? Are you eating something? These are habits you want to pick up on. Once you understand these habits is when you can remove them. But you need to start thinking about it. I know it sounds a bit weird, but half of the training and half of the changes to make is really a mindset and understanding what is going on around you and why is it going around you and how can you do the necessary steps to change it. But before you can do that, you need to understand yourself, your mindset, and your habit. You need to be self-aware. Okay, so from now on, next thing you also want to do is pay attention to your habits. What are you doing unconsciously? Think about it slowly. What are you doing that you think is normal and a good habit? Because most of our habits, we are doing it automatically. It doesn't mean it's a good habit. Smoking is not a good habit. Drinking is not a good habit. Eating too much sweet and sugar is not a good habit. But yet people do it. So try and understand your own actions and pay attention. Take notes. Okay? See you on the next video. Understanding your judgment. Our judgment isn't perfect. Let's be honest. It is pretty flawed. So one of the next things we want to start thinking about is what are some of the judgments, decisions making we do that is actually not good for us. So it could be thinking about what are you doing that you don't need to do. What are the things you should be doing? Alright. These are also related to, do you keep looking at your phone? Do you need to keep looking at your phone? Or did you just open your email when you just told yourself that you would be writing a blog or doing some lighting practice or applying for work? But why did you open the email? Why did you look on the phone? Why did you just suddenly decide to go out and do something else? Okay, we break our promises every day, and I said this earlier, I think, but we keep our promises to other people all the time. So these are the things we want to think about. How are you going to keep your own promise? How are you going to be a person that people know is able to keep your own promises? Okay, So it's not just about self-discipline and time management. It's about understanding yourself. And it's a really tedious and exhausting process. But once you get through this, you're going to be aware of your habits. You're going to have some routines. So you're going to change your habits for the better. So think a little bit about how strict are you with yourself? Because if you just stop doing things because it's difficult or you're bored, you have to understand what is the value you put into the task. Because if you don't think it's important, then why are you doing it? And if you should be doing it and you have to do it, why don't you think it's important? Okay? So you need to understand what is it that you don't need to do and what is it that's stopping you from focusing and being productive. Think about it, write it down, okay? We're one step closer to understanding each other, right? See you in the next video. Proximate causes. So what is proximate causes? That's literally when you have a tendency to blame something around you rather than yourself. We do it all the time. An argument with your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. But the real cause is maybe because you feel neglected. An argument over the toilet seat being up or down. But maybe it's because they forgot something important. Proximate causes is something everyone do on a daily basis, at least weekly basis. And we argue over something that isn't even important. So people don't really understand that the motivation, where does it come from, what is real motivation, and what is it for. So the thing is, are we really driven by pain and pleasure? Arguably, we get some pleasure out of getting rid of pain. Okay, I repeat, we have a tendency to feel pleasure when we get rid of pain, because we feel a sense of relief. That's why we do like horror movies and other things, because we feel a sense of, I feel better now. So that's something to think about as well. When you argue, when something's happening at work, Discord, social media, when you're studying, you're doing a course, stop being a victim. Stop having a victim mindset. Stop blaming other people. Think about it. What is the real reason that you are being distracted and blaming someone else? Because you're blaming social media, you're blaming Netflix, you're blaming other things. That's a victim mindset, and we want to eliminate the victim mindset. We want to start thinking, why do I think like that? Why am I saying this? And we want to eliminate those words. We don't want to think about it because we want to be a better person. We want a better control of our own time and ourselves. That starts with understanding what is motivation. Well, we get motivated when we release pain. So that means that we seek pain on purpose, right? So we have to understand that. And we also have to understand that we have a tendency to blame anything that's close by rather than really understanding the real deep root issue. So as we move on and as we explore, we want to figure out what are these root issues and why do they happen, okay? And they can happen for any real reason, okay? So we want to think about that. We want to understand that. Again, keep taking notes. Keep thinking about it on every video that you watch so far. Reflect over it every day. That's why these videos aren't very long, because they are exhausting, because you really have to sit down and think about it and take notes and kind of catch yourself when you do one of these things, when you do one of these psychological terms, and kind of understand why did you do it. Okay, so it's a long process, but we'll get there. Okay, thank you for watching. See you on the next video. There's something called homeostatic responses. It's a scientific term. That basically means we try and keep our inner state stable. So it works like warm and cold. So what does that mean? It means if something needs to be done, we get activation and our brain goes, okay, I need to do something now. For example, if I'm cold, my brain goes, go wear something more warmer or turn up the heat, right? If I'm cold, and if I'm warm, it goes, okay, you need to take it off because now you're warm, or reduce the heat. Our brain works in a similar fashion, okay? The purpose is to get us to do something. Like when you're hungry, you get cravings, you go and eat, right? That is, the purpose is to get our brain and our body to be balanced, to be stable. But if you really think about this on and off function, it's to ensure stability, okay? For example, do you enjoy your food when you're already eaten or when you were hungry? Do you enjoy drinking when you're thirsty or when you already drank a little bit? Or for example, let's say you've gone a month without drinking Coca-Cola or eating pizza or junk food. How often do you enjoy it more when there's a longer gap versus how often you do it regularly? I will bet that normally you feel good when you're hungry and you eat, or if it's been a long time since you tasted something because there's a gap. Okay? This has something to do with homeostatic response. So we are creature of addiction and habit. Okay, so what happens is when we are doing these things, we enjoy the pleasure of relieving ourselves. We feel the pleasure of, as I said earlier, with the horror things. So if we go through these positively and negative emotions, then ask ourselves, why are we doing it to begin with? Okay, and then understand what's the root cause, what's the stressful part of this, and why is it happening. For example, a lot of people, they'll stress eat if they go through a breakup or something happens. The root cause isn't the food. That's not the problem. Even though it's within the vicinity of yourself, the junk food, the ice cream or whatever. But what's the real reason is it's something emotional, something distressful to the person, right? So that's why that person got distracted. That's why the person lacked the discipline and mindset to kind of stop doing it. Because when we do it, we feel a relief, and when we feel a relief, we build habits, and in this case example, bad habits. So we already have this instilled on us. We have bad habits for the same reason that we have done certain things in the past, so we need to feel discomfort, or we try it and ignore it by doing something else, also called procrastination in a different example in a different situation, right? When you're supposed to do something and maybe you feel uncomfortable, so you procrastinate. But did you ask yourself, why do you feel uncomfortable? Why don't you want to do it? Okay, so we want to think about the root causes behind this. It's very important. Okay, so homeostatic response, look it up and read more about it if you need to, and I'll see you in the next video. So we need to understand a little bit the difference between wanting and liking. So oftentimes when we do things, we are doing things either because we want to do it or we like to do it. These are two different things. For example, there was a research conducted where they force-fed some rats after making sure that their want to eat was removed. Prior to that, they already tested if the rats would eat food that they didn't like, basically because they were hungry, and they ate it, but the part of the brain that goes they're liking it say they don't like it, but they're eating it because they have to, because they want to, because they're hungry, but they didn't like it. Then they shut down the dopamine part where they remove the want need, and they force fed the rats with something, and what happened is the rats then showed signs that they like it, but they didn't want it, right? Because they shut down the wanting, but they liked the food, but they didn't want it. They weren't hungry. This is the same thing that happens to us, right? How often haven't you heard, or maybe you haven't heard, but quite often a lot of people will drink beer early on in the age and even afterwards, even though they don't like it. They want it for social reasons, social pressure, but they don't necessarily like it. A lot of alcohol people don't like, but it gets them high. So a lot of the things we do is driven by the possibility of feeling something based on cravings and habits we once experienced or feeling. So we felt something in the earlier days and we want to feel it again. So we have developed a habit without knowing it. Candy, masturbation, sex, kissing, attention craving, game addiction, right? How often haven't you watched Netflix or games and kind of felt bad afterwards, thinking, oh, I should have done something else? I know that has happened to me, and that's connected to this illusion that you're doing something you want and like. Well, in reality, you're doing something you like, but you're actually wanting to do some work and study, but then you get distracted because of these different things. So we need to find these things, and we need to learn to control them. So you need to find them, think about it, categorize it, and think about, I want to do this, but I end up procrastinating because I like to play games. I wanted to study, I wanted to read a book about lighting, but I got distracted, or I wanted to watch this Netflix show. Understand these things, find these things, and write it down, okay? And thank you for watching.